New revelation about Donald Trump. The former U.S. president once suggested shooting protesters' legs. Former U.S. President Donald Trump once suggested shooting at protesters, firing rockets into Mexico. Colombia's most notorious drug lord was extradited to the U.S. Spyware caused internal tension in Spain. In Iran, the price of basic necessities skyrocketed, which could lead to a socio-political crisis. Following the book by American journalist Michael Bender, published in 2021, denouncing Donald Trump's rough words, asking the military to intervene, disperse protesters protesting racism after the death of George Floyd, a book by former U.S. Secretary of Defense Mark Esper titled A Sacred Oath, Memoirs of a Secretary of Defense, released on May 10, 2022, once again stirred up American and international public opinion. On May 2, the online news agency Axios first published excerpts of Trump's shocking statements in the book. RFI correspondent from Washington, Guillaume Naudin on May 2, 2022, added, "Can't we just shoot them? Shoot them in the leg or somewhere else?" Those were the suggestions of Donald Trump when protesters gathered in front of the White House in June 2020. Like many other places in the United States, angry people went to protest after the death of African-American George Floyd in Minneapolis, suffocated by a policeman who put his knee on his head for 8 minutes. The policeman involved has now been Former Secretary of Defense Mark Esper held this position from July 2019 to November 2020. Quoted these words in the book's Sacred Oath, thanks to which, online news agency Axios exploited get a lot of. The book depicts a president flushed with anger, sitting at a table and complaining about protesters in a grumpy tone. Donald Trump was furious that Mr. Mark Esper had refused to mobilize the military, and just a few months later, Mr. Esper was fired. According to the former head of the Department of Defense, dismissing is an easy decision, the difficult thing here is how to get the president to back down without creating the scene of riots, which Esper tries. Mr. Mark Esper is also not the first to mention this incident. In another book, published in 2021, journalist Michael Bender also covered that case. Mr. Bender told the story of Donald Trump's request to smash the skulls of protesters. In public, the president wrote on Twitter, his favorite social networking site, "When the looting starts, so does the gunfire." The New York Times reported that the book also raised Trump's suggestion about the possibility of using missiles to attack drug production facilities in Mexico because he thought the U.S. could pretend not to be involved in the attack. Labor. Donald Trump's violent trends. According to Vanity Fair magazine, excerpts of Trump's violent ideology are not without foundation. During his term from 2016 to 2020, Donald Trump often proposes to use violence against those with different views. In February 2016, after kicking a protester out of one of his supporters' rallies when he was running for president, Mr. Trump incited violence by saying, "I want to punch him in the face." Until he became president, Trump asked police to pin the suspect's head to the side of a car to avoid accusations of abusive force. Another time, Trump praised a congressman who assaulted a reporter with cheeky questions about health care. And in January 2021, the former U.S. president incited his supporters to attack the Capitol and claimed that it was a just action. Pegasus spyware makes internal Spanish political turmoil. Looking to Europe, the Pegasus spyware scandal, developed by an Israeli company, has once again stirred the Spanish public, after it was reported that 56 Catalan separatist leaders had been tracked with this software. The incident caused an unprecedented crisis between Madrid and Barcelona. For its part, the Madrid government, soon after, said that the mobile phones of Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez and Defense Minister Margarita Robles were also monitored by this software. The Spanish political world and public opinion do not believe that Morocco is behind the incident, but rather the Sánchez government. On May 5, 10 members of a parliamentary committee that controls special funds of the Spanish National Intelligence Service, CNI heard an explanation from Paz Esteban, the head of the agency, about Pegasus spyware scandal, and it seems that Prime Minister Sanchez was wrong to make him RFI correspondent Francois Mezzo, reporting from Madrid on May 5, 2022. The Pegasus scandal is more confusing than ever. The political crisis is getting worse. First, the government of Prime Minister Sanchez is accused of using software to track faction leaders. From now on, everyone criticizes him for his inability to guarantee national security. Intelligence agencies are the first to be criticized. A Spaniard, Juan Varela, worker baking, feeling hazy. It's chaotic. Who's spying for whom? Is the government spying for the separatist leaders? Or is the separatist spying for the government? In the end, it's always the same. They're all the same. Terrorist software and everyone wants to benefit. So who's to blame? As always, it's the people. Because the people most watched ourselves. The Spaniards did not know what to think about the Pegasus affair. Who is the mastermind of this spy scandal? Government? Or Morocco? Or another country? The informatics Gabriel Sanchez analyzes this situation as follows. This is a crisis of trust between different levels of government. Because if they really didn't have internal organizational problems to know who's spying on whom, there wouldn't be a need to open an investigative committee to find out who is spying. Clarify the responsibilities of each person. President Pedro Sanchez is under increasing pressure. He has successfully avoided the commission of inquiry, but it will be difficult to avoid having to give an account to Parliament. Iran raises grain prices, people suffer. In the Middle East, the Iranian government has just made a decision to increase the price of noodles by 100% and increase the price of flour 13 times for industrial bread manufacture. Bread is a staple food on the table of Iranian people. The shocking price hike has exacerbated food insecurity, political as well as social, in the militarily powerful Muslim country but dependent on external food sources. RFI correspondent Sayavash Ghazi reports from Tehran on May 5, 2022. This decision was announced suddenly. Agriculture Minister Javad Satatinejad explained on TV how the Ukrainian war situation has caused a global and regional food crisis. Mr. Satatinejad said, the increase is intended to prevent smuggling abroad, where flour costs 13 to 14 times as much. Iran's neighbor has a 3 million metric tons wheat deficit and is dependent on flour smuggled from Iran to make up the whole. For many Iranians, however, the decision to raise prices comes amid an already troubled economy. An inflation rate above 40% makes the situation worse. Rayhana, a housewife for 40 years, confirmed, everything is very difficult. Prices are climbing day by day. We have to limit the purchase of essential products, daily food. Products that were once easily accessible to anyone are now becoming luxuries, far beyond the reach of ordinary people. Rice and meat prices have increased by 100% in the past year. The government promised direct subsidies to offset the price increases, but the worsening economic situation only exacerbated the crisis, an Iranian lawmaker confirmed. Posts on Twitter, like Egypt and Turkey, Iran mainly imports most of its basic foods from Russia. Out of $52 billion spent on importing all kinds of goods in 2021, Iran spends $19 billion to buy 30 million tons of wheat, corn, cooking oil, etc. The risk of food shortage becomes serious. More, due to the war in Ukraine, forced Russia to limit exports to ensure food self-sufficiency in the country, temporarily banning grain exports to the countries of the Eurasian Economic Union, including notorious drug lord extradited to the U.S. Looking to the Americas, drug lord and leader of Colombia's largest clan Del Golfo, Dairo Antonio Uzaga, alias O'Daniel, was extradited to the United States on Wednesday, April/05 and faces charges from 3 courts in the United States. Before his arrest in October 2021, O'Daniel was Colombia's most wanted man. The government of this country has offered a reward of $800,000 if anyone reports on his whereabouts, while the U.S. has set a reward of up to $5 million if the drug lord is eliminated. O'Daniel has long been on the indictment list of the U.S. Anti-Narcotics Force. O'Daniel was first indicted in a Manhattan federal court in 2009 for drug trafficking and aiding a far-right paramilitary group, which the U.S. government classifies as a terrorist organization. Then he was in court in Brooklyn and in Miami, where he was indicted for importing 73 tons of opium into the United States from several countries in South and Central America between 2003 and 2014. Colombian authorities say O'Daniel was at the head of the Clan del Golfo drug cartel, which sells between 180 and 200 tons of cocaine a year and has killed hundreds of members of South American security. The gang consists of about 1,800 members, is armed, operates everywhere in Colombia and has many international links, not only trafficking in drugs and people, but also illegal gold mining and extortion.